All right, welcome. It looks like we are live. We are ready to get going on episode 2 of season 2 uh, with Mr. Carter Hassebrook. We're gonna get to everything about him in just a second, but yeah, if you're watching, thank you so much for doing this. This is I'm obviously Ben from BenThere, but looking forward to this one. This is a guy I've known for a long time. I haven't seen him in many many years. I haven't even talked to him in a minute or two. So, but this is going to be fun. He's got a lot to talk about, and I'm very curious about a lot of his backstory here. But Mr. Carter Hassebrook is an American system engineer who spent a significant part of his teenage years living in Taipei, Taiwan. He has actually been on tour since 2000. Carter has worked with big name musical acts like Shania Twain, Peter Frampton, Fantasia, Five Finger Death Punch, Wiz Khalifa, Cece Winans, and many others. In addition to touring, Carter has also done work for the CMT, Fox, ABC, and BET television networks, as well as the CMA Awards, Flameworthy Awards, and the Dove Awards. He's a father, a husband, and a 1998 graduate of Belmont University. Carter currently resides in Nashville, Tennessee, which I'm sure he's ready to get back on the road because of COVID, which we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But Carter, man, thanks for joining. It's been a minute, brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. So yeah,
Good, good.
thanks for doing this. Like I kind of said in your intro, you and I know each other. We went to high school together in Taipei, but it's been a minute. I haven't talked to you in years, and I can't wait to get into this because you're somebody, like so many out there. Kind of, obviously things are on hold because of COVID, and we'll get to that in just a second. But I'm assuming you're living your dream, or when you're on the road, you're living your dream. You're doing everything music wise, and we're going to talk about that. But just so the listeners, we're live right now on Facebook. We're live right now on YouTube. Those of you that have watched the show, we have progressed into the podcast universe. The BenThere podcast is now available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and pretty much anywhere you can get your podcast platform. That's where we're there. So make sure you subscribe to that as well. But this is the live version of the show, Carter, and I just want you to start off by just summarizing your upbringing, where your family's originally from, where you lived growing up, your college, your own family, and being that this has a lot to do with the TCK, the third culture kid stuff, how you ended up overseas to begin with. So I'm going to give this over to you right now, brother. Go ahead.
Well, I was grew up mostly in Houston, with a small stint in Lufkin, Texas, when I was very, very young.
Where is Lufkin? I'm going to interrupt right away. Where the hell is Lufkin?
Uh, you know, it's somewhere up near Dallas. I
Okay.
think we moved there when I was about 1, and
Okay.
moved back before my younger sister, Kat, was born, which she's 3 years younger than I am, so I was little. Um,
Oh.
So yeah, anyway, I was there in Houston until I was 15. In 1990, we moved to Taipei, and that was the first time. I mean, aside from a vacation once or twice out of Texas, that I'd ever been out of there. So it was a little scary to start. Dad worked for what was Arthur Anderson, which is now Accenture. But anyway, they were doing management consulting, and they merged with a bank, and that's how we ended up over there. And it was a little weird because he'd had an offer to potentially move to Nice, France, for a year, and he turned it. He's like, "Well, we can't do that." Like maybe a year before, or not even, if I've got that right. And then the next thing is like, "Yep, well, we pretty much have to do this." And we're going, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! We were going to the beach, man." And you said no, and now what? But anyway, it turned out to be fantastic. I mean, obviously, met a ton of cool people, and great friends from over there, and from around the world that were there. But I think the you know yeah. Anyway, I'm sure that'll be a question for later.
It
So
will.
yeah.
No, it will.
Um, but yeah, I graduated in '92, right? Then I went to Colorado for school for a minute, and that wasn't working out for me, for for all kinds of reasons.
Yeah.
But I moved back because mom and dad and sister were still there,
Move back
and
to Taipei.
yeah, moved back to
Yeah.
Taipei,
Yeah.
and helped run a bottled water company with Sam Nordoff. If anybody listening knows him, it's awesome guy. I haven't heard from him since I left.
Yeah.
But that was a really awesome experience because I was running the bottle, that side or whatever. And then mom and dad were leaving that next year. So they pretty much said, yeah, you could come in too. We don't care. So I went back to school in Minnesota for a little while as an Asian studies major until I was about
Okay.
to spend a year in Shanghai.
Mhm. Oh,
And
really?
yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, and I had like one class left, and everything else was electives, and I was done with that major. And I was driving home going like, okay, this is all cool, but what in the hell am I going to do with this? Like, okay, well, I could teach Chinese,
Hmm.
or I could go and, get a degree in international business. And I don't know if I want to do any more school. I don't know. And I ended up moving to Nashville because I'm like, what am I thinking? Like, what do I really want to do? Where's my passion? And it was in music. So I moved to Nashville, went to Belmont because they've got a really good music business program, and it's well rounded. So I took everything from um, copyright law and artist management and all kinds of stuff, but spent most of my time in the studio. And then digital recording studios started to take off right as I graduated, really big.
Nice.
So those jobs weren't
Yeah.
there, and I just kept getting called back out on the, hey man, can you help out with this? Can you help out with this? And yeah, next thing you knew, I'm on the road, and it's been great ever since. So yeah, that's
Oh, that's awesome.
pretty
Yeah, I
much it.
didn't realize. Did you? So you actually spent some time in Shanghai? I'm asking
No,
selfishly because I did.
no, I
Oh, you
didn't.
didn't go.
No,
Oh, okay.
that was where I was supposed to go when I got back to, like, instead of going back to Minnesota,
Oh, I see what you're
I was
saying. Okay. Okay.
going there for a year and went,
Gotcha.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure my parents are still pissed because I think they had to pay for some of that ahead of time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
fortunately, they're very cool and yeah, very,
No,
very,
that's awesome.
very
Yeah.
blessed young
Yeah.
gentleman I was.
Yeah. Especially at that age, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I totally get it. Yeah, no, I bring up Shanghai because I do have a little bit of connection to Shanghai too. I lived there for a couple of years, a few years back, and so
yeah.
it's if you ever get the chance to go, man, go. It's a fun city. It's a great place. It's
It's one
alive.
I haven't been to, and I'm it's on my list.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah,
my
it's
next trip over is going to be an extended trip because I don't feel like it's worth going that far
yeah.
for one place. So
Oh yeah, no. You gotta make it all worth it. Yeah. So if you're
yeah,
gonna go hit a couple spots, but yeah, Shanghai is definitely one you need to get back to. It's a fun town. So
cool.
small town, 22 million people, no big deal, right?
Yep.
So, but it's a fun place. Well, listen, usually, first off, thanks for sharing that, and
Sure.
definitely, I don't know if your sister's watching and your parents are watching, but
They're
props
both.
to them too. Yeah, I definitely knew them as well growing up. So, but you were a little bit older. Usually, when I interview people, they moved overseas at a younger age, or maybe spent their entire childhood slash adolescence overseas. You were a little bit older. How was that? Because you were in Texas. You grew up in Texas, and then at 15 you moved overseas. What was that like to be a little bit older, moving to a foreign country, moving to, I'm gonna guess just like any of us that when we initially move overseas, it's kind of a conflicted, no matter the age, unless you're an infant, right? It's kind of a conflicted issue until you get there. But what
Yeah,
was that like moving as because what were you, a junior in high school, sophomore in high
I was
school?
a sophomore.
Junior.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, what was that like being a little bit older and you'd had some worldly experiences, I'm assuming, or at least in Texas, you'd got some friends back home, things like that. What was it like moving internationally a little bit older?
Uh, it was scary for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but uh, I think what was it, yeah, because I didn't have a whole lot of experience outside of basic Texas white guy culture. I mean, that's just straight up like
Yeah.
I mean, that's just I don't think it was on purpose, because my parents are good people, and I don't think that they would have been intentionally keeping me somewhere like that. That's just what Texas was
Yeah.
like. People were
Yeah.
with the people that they were like, and so that was a little. I mean, it was a whole. When people say culture shock, I mean, holy crap! Houston, Texas is not, by the Galleria. If anybody's around Houston in the 80s and 90s, was nothing like Taipei.
No.
But there was still, fortunately, I was from a big city, so going to a bigger city, but still, that wasn't too much of a shock. But it was nice because I was really nervous because I'd been in a private school for the majority of my academic career up to that point, but wasn't definitely wasn't one of the cool kids. But metalhead. If you can't still tell,
Yeah.
you realize I'm wearing this shit anyway. So, yeah, so I had my some good, really close friends that I'm still good friends with today, but there weren't very many of them. And then I switched to a public school with a ton of kids, and I basically just ghosted my way through there. I don't remember anyone from that school at all. I couldn't tell you one person's name. So then going over there, I was like, I'm not going to know anybody. And I just assumed it was going to be the same thing. And that wasn't the case. And it was really neat to see how like everybody was in the same boat, everybody was over there, away from wherever home may have been before, and were really welcoming and inviting, and it was fantastic. So it was really cool to see. I guess to open my eyes to other people from other places, and we're all just the same people. I don't know that where I would be without learning that in high school like that. So
No, that's awesome. Yeah, you mentioned the Galleria in Houston. I actually lived there right in the Galleria area, 2001, and then a little thing called 9/11 happened, and I ended up moving back to Utah. So I definitely know the area you're talking about. But yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, definitely pros, and I'll jump on board with that as well. What about cons? Any aside from just the initial nerves, were there any cons to moving overseas at that age?
You know what? The biggest thing for me was when we would go back to Houston over the summers,
Hmm.
and so we got done with the school year. Well, now I have a bunch of new friends, and
Hmm.
I'm enjoying myself. And not everybody goes home or goes home
Yeah.
because that is home. But for me, it wasn't home. It wasn't home yet. It was just somewhere where I was going to be for a little bit. And so I get back to Houston to my other friends, and there wasn't Facebook and cell phones and all this other stuff. So
No.
there were letters, and I was real bad about communicating with my friends. So
Yeah.
anyway, I get back for the summer, and then we all get back together, and everything's normal. And then it's like, okay, pack it up. We're going back to Taipei. I'm like, I don't want to. Like, I'm with
Mm.
my friends, but then I'd get back there, and we'd go to. And then after that first time, going back home to Houston, I didn't want to do that either. Like, I'm here with I'm home again with my friends. I don't want to leave.
Mm.
And then I'd go back to Houston, and the same thing would happen every time. I'd go back and forth, and it was really weird, and it was
Yeah.
really hard. But that might have lined me up very well for what I do now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I can't wait to talk to you more because it's yeah, you're someone who's constantly on the road, and I want to get to that in a minute. I don't want to spoil it just yet, but yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I don't know if it's the age you were at or whatever, but I mean, there was always that conflict of emotions when you'd go back to wherever you were supposed to be from in the summertime. My brother and I did it as well. The irony with us is that we would go back to Utah. Well, none of my family is originally from Utah. My grandparents moved here in 1980. But so my brother and I would come back here. That was where our summers were spent. We'd split between here. Most summers we split between here in Utah and Pennsylvania, where my dad's side was from. My mom's side, it was her parents that lived here. So you'd always come back with that anticipation of, oh, I get to be American again, right? You get to go to malls, you get to do the Americanized teenage thing, and then at the end of the day, you'd go back and realize home isn't here. This is just where I go in the summertime, and you try your best to be an Americanized kid and fit in and whatnot. But yeah, it's you had a little bit ahead of step ahead of us because you did know people back where you were going back to. But it's such a conflict of emotions, or conflict of emotions. Yeah, it's a weird predicament. And I agree with you totally. Because as soon as you'd yearn for that desire to go back stateside, you'd get that itch, you'd go back, spend your summers there, and then as soon as you were there, it was almost like a flip flop of emotions. Or like, wait a minute, no, I want to go back overseas because that's where people know me. That's where I feel like I belong. Yeah, so I totally relate to that. But let's talk about when you did leave Taipei. You were class of '92. Not to age us, I was a year younger than you, but acclimation stateside. I know you. It sounds like you kind of struggled a bit. What was the biggest struggle once you returned back to the States for college? Because you went to Colorado initially,
Right.
and you ended up back in Taipei. So what was going on there?
Uh, well, I think it was a couple of different things. One, I had never been, I'd never been that far away from everyone that I knew
Mhm.
because I was either, and that's probably a normal college kid thing.
Sure.
You go away, but I know, like even, some guys will go to school with other buddies from
Hmm.
high school and whatever. But I went to a small school. It was in the middle of the mountains. It wasn't, um, and it was in a small. I mean, at Gunnison, Colorado. I went to Western State College of Colorado, and I don't know how many people were there, but it was not Taipei. It was not
Hmm.
Houston. Um, it was where we used to go to ski, and
Oh
and,
wow. Okay.
and, uh,
Gotcha.
and it was so the culture shock going back and forth from Houston to Taipei wasn't anywhere near as bad as going there because I didn't know anybody. There wasn't
Mhm.
anything to do because it wasn't ski season yet. So I found things to do,
Yeah.
and I realized I wasn't really bothering to be a student, and so let's stop because I could still stop and it wouldn't be on my record, and let's get out of here. And
Mhm.
so we did, and I moved back, and yeah, that's pretty much what was going on. So
I get that. No, that's if you've listened to the show, that's the number one thing I struggle with, man. It just acclimating because it sounds to me like you and I went to a very similar initial college experience. I did have a buddy of mine from TAS, Jason Hoffinger, if you remember him.
absolutely,
Yeah, he and I went to school together in the mountains of North Carolina. Uh, he's still in that area. He loved it. He thrived, and that's awesome. But I struggled big time. I was there a couple of years and played baseball, all that stuff and whatnot. But intrinsically, it was just there was something missing. It didn't feel like home. I don't know if it's to this day. I don't know what, but yeah, it sounds very similar to the kind of school you went to. And but yeah, acclimation to this day has always been the biggest struggle I've had. Growing up the way we did. So I get that. I get that totally. But you ended up back in Taipei, and then you said you spent about a minute in was it? I'm sorry, was it Minnesota? No.
yeah, I was in
Yeah.
Minnesota for a little while, and
Okay.
uh, that was cool. I mean, well, it was cold,
Yeah.
really, really cold.
Yeah, a little bit. A little
um,
bit.
yeah, but cool place to be. I mean, Minneapolis is awesome, and
Yeah.
but it just didn't have what I wanted in the long run. So off I went to
No.
Nashville. Somehow I had a buddy of mine that had mentioned the school at spring break. Um, when I was My parents had already moved to Atlanta when they got back from
Mhm.
Taipei. They moved to Atlanta, and so I was in Atlanta for spring break. This was one of my buddies that we're 3 months apart in age,
Okay.
and I've known him since he came home from the hospital.
Oh,
So
wow.
we've known each other
Wow.
for a while.
Yeah.
He had moved to Nashville, and then he came down and was talking to me about the school because he was thinking about going there. And then we both decided, "Oh, screw it." So over the summer, I drove up there and we went and applied. We both got in, and we both graduated from there. I think
That's
he
awesome.
graduated from there.
Belmont.
Yeah,
You did, right?
I
That's the
did.
important
Yeah,
part.
yeah,
Yeah, you
for
did.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And that's obviously you start that's where your kind of career in music, I'm gonna assume, began. But as long as I've known you, you've always been a music guy.
yeah,
And I had Roman Gradell on this. He's always in my head when I think of people back from the TAS days. I always think of Roman. I think of you. I think of Sean McKeon, who's actually chimed in. If you look
oh
down,
yeah,
he's already
yeah,
said hi. So, but yeah, there's certain people when I you picture what they kind of brought to the table back in the day. You've always been a music guy. You've always been passionate about music. So this doesn't shock me at all that that's where you ended up. But where did your original passion for music come from? What were the influences there? How did that all go about?
That's a great. I wish I had a perfect answer for that, because I've I've fallen to music for comfort and joy, pleasure, all of it for so long that I don't know where that started from.
Mm.
I mean, my parents aren't musicians that I ever know. I mean, they played something in high school or whatever, but nothing when we were growing up. And I just we took piano lessons as kids a little bit. Then I moved on to guitar, but I was listening to stuff and had like begging for a little radio with a cassette player in it, and that's all I spent my money on when cassettes and CDs and records and
Yeah.
everything. But yeah, I don't know where it started, but it's always been my thing. If I'm having a bad day, I'll find the right music to get me through it. If I'm having a great day, I've got some good music that's gonna just make it better. You know, yeah,
Oh, music's therapy, right?
that's 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally get that. And I'm not, by any means comparing myself to you, but yeah, it's totally therapy. I love that. What all do you play? Just for the people listening, what all instruments do you play?
Well, I used to play a little bit of piano and
Yeah.
bass and guitar. I played guitar in high school, and then I picked up the bass in college because we were having trouble finding a bass player. I was like, "Oh, I'll buy one." Yeah, okay. And I actually did that for I don't remember how many years. I played in a band and we toured around kind of regionally, trying to make something work.
Hmm.
Didn't, but I'm still great friends with those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, you took
But
a chance, man. That's a lot of
yeah,
people can't say that. So that's awesome.
yeah. So yeah, and I was doing that at the same time. We weren't obviously going out all the time. So while I wasn't doing that, I was working at an audio company or
Mhm.
doing other stuff, and that's how I was making ends meet. So, but unfortunately, I have a hand injury that keeps me from playing
Yeah,
anymore.
that was funky. The people that are watching, do you mind showing that finger? Yeah, you got
Yeah,
to show me that finger. That's
un-
yeah, that's pretty gnarly. Yeah.
it gets stuck, so it's kind of hard to go from one chord to the other unless they're just bar chords. And
Yeah.
even though I claim the metalhead thing, that does get boring after a while.
Well, hey, you're still way ahead of me, man. People ask me about the guitar a lot, right? Yeah, it pretty much sits there. So I need to start it up again. I played as a little kid. My brother can probably vouch for this. By the way, my brother chimed in too. I don't know if you saw this. He's
Oh,
there
nice.
too. Yeah,
What's up?
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I played as a little kid, and then we moved overseas. We moved to Hong Kong and then Taipei, and I just kind of gave it up. And it's one of the biggest regrets in my life. I just never picked it up again. I was pretty okay as a kid. Like before, we lived in Chicago before we moved overseas, and I begged my parents to let me play guitar, and they got me lessons. I was okay. To this day, man, it's a struggle. And what sucks is my wife's my wife's dad is just a musical genius. He can play anything with strings and make it look effortless. And it's
Nice.
yeah, so my goal for next year is to finally be able to sit there with him and play, a couple chords and a couple, songs and whatnot. So I'm trying to get back into it. But yeah, it's that's pretty much decoration, folks. If you're watching this live, that guitar behind me, yeah, I'll pick it up occasionally, but it's decoration. I'm no Carter by any means. So
I picked one of mine up and realized, I was like, man, it seems like it's sort of in tune. And then I
yeah.
realized how flat it was. What it was tuned to. It was pretty bad.
No, no, I love it. Well, let's dive right into your professional career then, because you're a system engineer, and I talked about this in the intro. You've toured with some pretty big people, and I want to make sure people understand what a system engineer is. So if you don't mind explaining that, go right ahead.
Well, okay. So it is, and this is part of like everything that I've done is all audio related. There's a bunch
Mhm.
of people that do all kinds of stuff on the road, and lighting and video and pyro and catering and you name it. But audio has always been my field of, uh, yeah, my field, right?
Mhm.
Uh, but so the system engineer's job is basically the big, huge speaker stacks that you see in stadiums, whatever. Um, we're the ones that design those in the morning and get them in the air with a team of people and time align and tune them so that everyone's experience in there is the same. So basically, my job is the guy that's mixing the show.
Mhm.
It's supposed to sound great where he is, and it's also supposed to sound great way up somewhere else or off to the side. And so, yeah,
So you're technically behind the scenes, but realistically, you're in front of the scenes because you're the guy that sits there and I've obviously been to many concerts, and I used to actually work concerts too. Not what you did. I did medical stuff, but yeah, we'd always stand right next to you guys, and you guys playing with the, the. I don't even want to try to say what that even is, an equalizer, whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, you're behind the scenes, but you're technically in front of the scenes. You're the reason the whole show sounds good, basically. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's
Or
usually,
bad? Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully I haven't been doing it this long
No.
because I suck. But
Yeah. I'm with, oh, come on now. Shania Twain, Peter Frampton, Five Finger Death Punch, Wiz Khalifa, 21. Oh, no, I'm not going to say 21 Pilots. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, Cece Winans and many more. Yeah, I'm going to say you're doing just fine. So
I'm doing all right.
yeah, you're doing all right.
I'm
So
doing all right.
how did you break into that? Going from a musician side of it in the industry to doing the the audio kind of thing. How did that work out?
Well, I was working at a record label for a while
Yeah.
in their shipping and receiving, small label. And so I basically ran their warehouse and did all the inventory for it and any of the promo things that were going in and out. And I had some of my buddies that were working as local stagehands, and they'd call me every once in a while. Hey, man, we need somebody else to come help us with whatever they were tearing down, setting up. I'm like, I like money. I like you guys. Let's go. And so that started happening more and more, and to where I quit working at the label, which was probably in retrospect a good thing because they went under 6 months later. And so that was fun doing that for, I don't know, a year or two. And then a buddy of mine, we were playing PlayStation or Xbox. We played Xbox at his house. And one of the local audio companies called him up and asked him if he could help him out at the shop, and asked him if he knew anybody else. He was like, oh, yeah, there's this dude sitting right next to me. We're just playing Xbox. I know he ain't doing anything tomorrow because neither am I. This is what we're doing. And so we went in and we're just helping sweep up and move some shit around. And I didn't leave. They just, "Hey, you guys come back tomorrow? Can you guys come back tomorrow?" And the next thing we knew, it's like, would you like health insurance? And it was real small. There was only like four or five of us that worked full time there. And since then, I've come and gone from that company, and I love those guys to death, and still work with them when I can. But they've grown a ton, so it's been nice to see that as well. But yeah, that's how I got into it. And then the owner of that company said one day, "Hey, you want to come out and fly PA on this tour?" Yep, sure do. And just rolled from there. You want to go mix these guys? You want to do this? So I've been there's a lot of other stuff that left was off that resume that I was mixing monitors for bands and front of house for one band for about 10 years. Casting Crowns, if anybody knows them. They're a contemporary Christian band that I worked from 2005 to 15. So that was a big part of that 20 years. And I don't know how I missed not reminding you about that on there. But anyway.
That's all right. No, you just did. So we're good. Yeah.
But in the middle of that stuff, and this is where I told you I'd ramble for a while.
Yeah, go for it. No, this is about you, brother. So go for it.
But mixing those same guys who I love, they're great people. For 10 years, I just kind of didn't want to do that anymore. Because, just like some, bands have their hit songs that, as a fan, you want to hear them. If AC/DC doesn't play Back in Black, you're going to be pissed. Whoever your band is, whatever they don't play, you're going to be pissed off about it. And these guys kept writing freaking hits, so we were playing the same things over and over. And I know that wears on the band, and it was wearing on me, and I had to step out of the way because I wasn't doing them. I didn't feel like I was doing them justice anymore. My heart wasn't in it, and so there's no reason for me to be there. And fortunately, that's when I had an opportunity to go out with Shania Twain, and everything else kind of launched from there. The majority of all those other bands and things that were the bands anyway were kind of after that. There's a pretty big springboard right there, jumping a Shania, you know, uh, I think Wiz Khalifa and Godsmack came before that, but um, all that other stuff's what I did since. Peter Frampton was last year, his last big huge tour, and man, if anybody got to see that, holy crap, that was fun.
Yeah.
That was just unbelievable. And side note, the very last song on the last date of that tour, he wanted all of his full time guys to be up on the stage with him. So I mixed the last song of his last
Oh, hell yeah.
show on. I'm sure he's done a couple. I know that was just the end of the big. He's carrying all the stuff tour, and I know he's doing a couple more things here and there. I'm sure eventually, but man, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, but that's still, yeah, I was gonna say that's still something to hang your hat on, man. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'm sure somehow I screwed it up too, because man, those you're so good, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. Well, that's I want to get into this then. Like, what is a no? I mean, obviously, I'm someone who would go to a concert as a fan. I'd go and listen and just enjoy the moment. I didn't have to deal with the business side of things. I didn't have to deal with the pressure of making sure everybody sounds good. I didn't have to deal with any of that. I just got to go, like everybody probably watching or listening to this, and just enjoy the moment. This is a career path for you. This is a job. This is you're deep into it. How you go, the band goes basically. So what is a normal day in the life of someone who tours for that profession? Like what I'm gonna assume the sound of the crowd never gets old. The rah rah and all that stuff. The electrifying atmosphere never gets old. But talk about a day in a life, and then when you can, just talk about what things are you never get tired of, and then maybe what things that we don't always see that maybe do put a lot of pressure on, or do get exhausting, things like that.
Gotcha. Well, depending on the job, the days can be very,
Mhm.
very, very different. And if I'm doing my job right, some of the other guys don't have to be there for a while. So, um, just going since we were talking about Peter Frampton on that one, I was a system engineer, so I would be in there as early as I could be in the building, which sometimes is 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, depends what time we were actually loading in, and I can't remember what our schedule was on that one.
Now, are you the system engineer for the entire tour, or you just pick and choose? Yeah, okay. So you're talking multiple cities, multiple months, multiple, maybe even a year tour, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that year I was with Celtic Woman from February till June or late May, and did an award show, and then was straight into Peter Frampton until September, and then flew from his last show to the first, like the PA and everything was in the air for rehearsals for Fantasia until the year was over. So I spent very few days at home last year,
Mhm.
which has its own,
Yeah, we're gonna get into that because I'm so curious about that side of things too.
uh,
Yeah, go
but yeah,
ahead.
yeah, up early and using 3D computer modeling and whatever to design PAs. You measure the rooms, basically drawing a big, huge CAD of everything for if that helps make sense to anybody, um, and figure out how the PA is going to work in a room, and then eventually all our trucks will get unloaded and stuff spills out everywhere, and we put it in the air and jump out there and with microphones and all kinds of other computer things and get it all tuned and aligned, and where it sounds like $1,000,000 where you guys the fans are gonna be, but that big empty room does not sound the same as it does when it's full of fans, and
Uh,
especially when they're yelling because the temperature change and all kinds of stuff.
so many details that the novice like myself and just the fan that would go into a concert would never even think of. But I'm gonna guess that every city has its own, I don't know, style. But you pretty much abide by the same setup, though, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean we're touring with all the same gear.
Okay.
So with the exception of on that tour, we brought in more PA when we played Madison Square Garden.
No,
We
some small venue like Madison Square Garden. Yeah, no big deal.
Well, and we were playing mostly amphitheaters,
Yeah.
sheds. So you don't need that same kind of. It's you just don't need it, and
Mm.
so we brought in more speakers for that one. But aside from that, it's the same stuff every day. But the roof may be taller, it may be shorter, it may, just every building looks different, and so speakers point in different places. So um, so yeah, we get it all set up. The band gets out there, they sound check, they do their thing. Show starts, and I'm again wandering all over, up, around, back, lawn, nosebleeds, whatever, so I can hear what the difference is and make changes as need be. And I got a tablet that connects everything that's down there and do stuff. And yeah, then at the end of the night,
That's
we tear it all out, put it in a truck, go to bed by hopefully 1 or 2 in the morning, and get up and do it again.
doing it again the next day, huh?
Again, yep.
That's that's a wild life, man. Let's I'm assuming the sound of the crowd, the rah-rahs and all that never gets old though. What part of it never gets old?
Uh,
Is that it?
that's one of them for sure.
Yeah.
And a specific one that reminded me when I was still out with casting crowns, and I was kind of like, man, don't want to just get off the road.
Mhm.
We had like it was exactly 6 weeks off, and it exactly fit that Wiz Khalifa tour. And I went out and did that. And part of my job on that one, we had a stage out like kind of near the lawn in the amphitheater, and he would run out there, and so I would go out, turn on another transmitter for his in-ear monitors, and set a new mic out for him out there. And then I was extra security around the thing, and so all the kids and everybody are just right up on top of him, and seeing their faces looking at him, just like and they're so
Yeah.
excited. I was like, that's why I do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he doesn't get that, and not a lot of people realize that, and I'm sitting here not realizing it either until now, but yeah, he doesn't get that if it's not for people like you. You know what I mean? He doesn't get those looks unless he sounds good, which is a tribute to you. So
Yeah.
that's pretty impressive, man. Um, yeah, so it's obviously this has been a crazy year for everybody, but how has COVID interrupted your job this year? And what's the status right now and the upcoming year looking? How I mean everything's been put on hold, I'm assuming, but what's COVID done to your profession?
Uh, it shut as far as live event stuff, it's pretty much shut down.
Yeah.
There were some people doing a few little drive-in movie theater tours and stuff over the summer, but there's not that many theaters, and how to do them and keep them profitable, even break even profitable, so that the guys could pay their crew and just their normal day to day whatever bills, was difficult for a lot of them. And a few of them got it done, but it was tough. Um, and everybody's kind of moved to trying to do online things, and I don't know how those are going. I was still am part of one. We've got one set up here, and hoping that more people decide to come there, but I haven't been in there in probably 2 months, I think, since I've actually made a paycheck. So it's pretty tough. And I don't have a clue when it's coming back.
Yeah.
Uh, the majority consensus is probably summer, because everything will be back out in the open at amphitheaters and things, and uh, hopefully we'll be okay to do stuff by then. But until then, I'll be right here. Or yeah,
Yeah, well, I'm gonna guess that with your track record and your resume, brother, you're gonna be a pretty quick call for those artists and whatnot to get back on the road. So let's
fingers
hope.
crossed. Yeah.
Yeah, let's hope. So, do your well, before I even ask you this, let's talk about. I want to kind of blend your TCK background into this because I mean, in terms of your overall life and your experiences and being on the road, things like that. Do you think growing up at TCK, a third culture kid, seeing the things you saw at a young age, traveling a lot, being, technically on the road, even though it's an airplane, what kind of part did that play in your overall lifestyle?
Uh, I think it played a lot.
Mhm.
I think it helped a lot, because again, getting to getting to TAS, and being instantly welcomed by,
Taipei American School for
yeah,
those that maybe not. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
um,
I knew what you meant.
being welcomed so quickly by so many people.
Yeah.
When we get to a tour, we could have some tours have very few, but some of them have upwards of 100 people that are traveling in buses, and so you're seeing these same people every day. And if you're not getting along, it's not cool. It's at all. It's not okay. Um, because some of these guys are sleeping literally inches above your head.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm assuming you sleep on the bus. I'm assuming, is that okay?
yeah, and there, depending on the tour, there's 12 bunks. You hope that some of those are at least empty, so you can put stuff in them, rather than keeping stuff at your feet. But they get real crowded with 12 people in them. But that's how they travel sometimes. So you're stacked 3 guys high, or gals, guys or gals.
Yeah.
Um, um, and yeah, it's if you're not happy with the people that you're with, um, and you don't know how to be kind to people that are different than you are, for whatever their difference is. They listen to different music, they have a different political outlook, whatever. You can't be an asshole.
Mhm.
You can be really opinionated about whatever, but man, when you're living that close to somebody, you gotta you gotta be cool about it. And I think that kind of helped, you know, being greeted like that. Um, it's a good reminder of how to treat people. So
I love
thank
it. I love it. Well, yeah, I don't know if you ever watched the episode, but Scott McCann, another TAS guy that I interviewed on season
you.
1, talked about chosen families. And, as people like us that grew up the way we did, yeah, you move to international schools and you kind of become a part of a chosen family because that's what becomes your family, extended family. I would assume to a degree it's the same. I love what you just said because, yeah, you're not always going to get along with people. That's just the way it is. You're going to have different opinions. You're going to have different views. But I would think in your world, in a roundabout way, that chosen family thing kind of props up again on tour, because you have to work. You have to find a way to get along, right? So,
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have any way to I mean, it's difficult to get away from
yeah,
people. You're in a
yeah,
venue, you're all in there together, you're all leaving together, you're all going to end up at the same hotel on a day off. You're all,
yeah.
if every it, yeah, having an enemy is not fun. So
Yeah.
fortunately, fortunately, I haven't had to do that too many times. But
That's yeah. I know your personality. I have a hard time believing you've had too many enemies. But well, let's transition then. Speaking of which, you're on the road so much, or when you're working, you're on the road so much. The concept of home is such a tricky thing for third culture kids, but even more so with someone like you who spends so much of his time on the road. Especially, what would you consider then? The concept of home. Where is home for you? Because I know you live in Nashville when you're not working. You and I have talked, before we went live. Your kids live in Atlanta.
Mhm.
So where is that concept of home? What do you consider home to be?
uh, it's really wherever my family is, where when they're with me.
Mhm.
So it's here, right now. But if I'm in Atlanta with my kids, it's there. If we're on vacation somewhere when we used to be able to do that, then that felt like that was home, because I'm with the people that make it home.
Yeah.
So it's not as much like, I enjoy our house. It's really, it's got our cats in it, and
Yeah.
some stuff, but it's not, the house itself isn't home. This Nashville home is my wife. That's what makes this home. Um, and then when she comes, she'll come and visit me on the road sometimes because I'm
Mhm.
gone for months at a time. So if we get a couple days off in a row, she'll fly out and we'll spend a couple days, like, Baltimore or something. So that hotel in Baltimore is home for a minute, you know?
I
So
get it. It totally becomes people. I can totally relate to that. I mean, I'm not on the road like you are, but yeah, is living in so many places and moving 27 times in my life. It's not necessarily a physical place, right? It's the people. It's the
no,
it's the ones. I've always said this. It's the ones you love and the ones that love you back, that becomes home. It's more of a, not necessarily a physical place anymore, but it's about the people. It's about a feeling.
yeah.
So I can totally relate to that. But yeah, I just can't imagine, being on tour and then yearning to be home, but that home's not even necessarily a physical place. It's just about being around those people.
Yeah. What's funny,
Yeah.
most of the stuff that I even have is all
Mhm.
portable. Like
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
even my coffee stuff, like, all right, you know, my
Yeah.
espresso will go on the road with me, and
Yeah.
my this will go on the, you know, and so I have ways to pack it all up, and I take all my
Yeah.
stuff because that's
I bet you're one hell of a suitcase packer these days, right?
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
One of the perks of being in Nashville is a
Yeah.
lot of the tours will come, like all the gear
Yeah.
comes from here, so I can send shit on the truck to get out
I
there.
love it.
Some other guys
Yeah.
are flying out to the first thing they've got, you know,
Oh, yeah, huh?
they can pack or pay overages, and I'm like, oh, I put it all on the
Do
truck.
it.
What, you
I
got your
love it.
bike and you've got this? I'm like, sorry.
That's all. Nashville's a fun town, man. I've been there a few times. It's a fun town if you know you get to experience it for more, I guess, than a day. But yeah, it's a fun town. So, speaking of your wife and your kids, and then do they understand your upbringing? I mean, in terms of how you spent a significant amount of your adolescence overseas. Do they get it, or is it something that you still kind of have to?
No, they don't. I
No.
mean, they know that that's where I was, but I talked to my wife about it yesterday.
Yeah.
Uh,
Where's she from?
uh, she, she grew up a, a good amount here in Nashville,
Okay.
and but she moved around a lot in the States, but moved around a lot. So from here to Atlanta and uh, Cincinnati and West Coast, Minnesota, so all kind of all
Sure.
over. So she understands the same kind of feeling of home, you know,
Mm.
that I do, because there hasn't been a like one place for a long, long, long time.
Right.
But we were talking about it last night, just because I brought that question up because I knew it was coming, and it was like
The infamous TCK question. Yeah.
you don't have
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know anything about, like, you can't understand this, can you? It's like, nope,
Yeah.
nope. It seems so weird, um, to even try and comprehend something like that,
Yeah.
because you know, I mean, we've traveled overseas together, the two of us, but it's, you know, that's not the same thing, you know,
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's weird, you know, even trying to talk to friends, like back in high school, you know, come back to Houston and you go, oh man, I got this story about when we were out going, we went to this MTV, and like, what the fuck is an MTV? And like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
nobody understands. Like there's so many things that are so just they're just different, but they're not
Yeah.
like. I thought those were cool, like MTVs
Yeah.
and KTVs. I'm like, why the hell are these not here? This is awesome. And
You got to explain what they are now.
of course
You
I do.
went there, so you got to explain it. Yeah.
Okay, so they're both like, it's kind of like having either watching a movie with your buddies at your house, except it's not your house. But you basically rented a living room where and a VHS tape back then, and
Yeah.
you
Right.
you can get some food and some drinks or whatever. And same
Yeah.
thing, like KTV was karaoke, so it was like having a karaoke party, but just with your friends. And I mean, how cool is that? You know, you don't have to have all this
It was
stuff.
pretty damn cool. Yeah, it
I
was
mean,
pretty damn cool. Yeah.
again, like anybody that hasn't been there, they're looking at both of us saying how cool that is.
Yeah.
Going, these guys are weird,
What?
dude.
Yeah.
They're like zone out. Okay, fine. Yeah, we won't talk about that anymore. But yeah, they're fun, you know. So
And that was our teenage years too. That's what's wild. I mean, yeah, as a 15, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old, yeah, you could rent out a room with your buddies and
yeah.
just be. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
gosh, it was so much fun, man. So much fun.
Yeah. No, I love it. What about your kids? Do they get it or no? Have they been overseas at all or
No, they have
no?
not. No.
Okay.
Um, yeah, the closest I think we might have touched down in Mexico on a cruise once, but no, they haven't been overseas. Uh, they haven't gotten to travel a whole lot. Just kind
How old are they? Are they teenage
of
years or what's their
22, 18, and 16.
Oh, you have 3.
Yeah,
Okay. Very
yeah,
cool. Very
yeah,
cool. Yeah. Well, once COVID's over, there's still time, man. You know,
yeah.
there's a big world out there that needs to be traveled and explored still. So it's that's cool. That's cool. Well, look, hey, we're running up against the clock. I am limiting these now. They used to just kind of go on, and I loved it. But we're trying to get these under an hour just so we could put them on the podcast and whatnot. But that is a nice little shout out from one of the former players of mine. Their moms. It's big into the baseball program that I work with. But look, I usually end these with 3 questions. This time flies when you're having fun, right? We're almost at an hour.
Nice.
But let's the last three questions I always ask are the same, and I'm really curious specifically with you what your answers are going to be here. But what is something most people don't know about you? Because I know you pretty well, right? We grew up together, but what's something that most people don't know about you?
Uh, I think most people wouldn't know that I have a big comic book collection right over here on this other shelf.
Really? Yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't see that coming.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah. I was trying to think about like, man, most people know. I mean, anybody that tours with me knows that because that's part
Yeah,
of what I do on days off is I go and find little collectible stores and comic book shops. And fortunately, on at least one of those tours, I got a couple, three buddies on Celtic Woman that we all go to all those places together anytime we can.
that's funny. That's
Yeah.
what I didn't know that. Yeah, what kind of comic books? I'm just
Uh,
curious. Yeah.
you name it. Like
Okay.
my most recent thing is I've been trying to collect stuff that was released the year I was born. So
Okay.
I've been going back to 1974 and starting to collect from there. And yeah, and it doesn't matter what it is, but Marvel, DC, whatever, Image, any of them, you name
I
it.
love it.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, I did not see that coming. I don't
I
know
didn't.
why, but I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
That's why I asked that question. I love it though. I love it. So, okay, the second question then: if you could have a sit down, have a long chat for an hour long chat with anybody, whether they're still with us or not with us, someone in history, someone just an everyday Joe, who would that be?
Um, I think right now,
Mhm.
because it would probably change every day, but right now it might be um, one of the kind of well, is he Dr. Gregor, who's a oh shoot, of course I would forget the name of his books. Um, how not to die and his new one and how not to diet, but they're all plant based. Oh, that might be something nobody knows me either. Is
There you
I'm
go.
on a completely plant based diet now, and have been for a while. But yeah, just to sit down and talk with somebody like that because it's all of his stuff is all evidence based, and he goes through a lot of you know looking at how studies were done or whatnot, not just a
Yeah,
oh it's supposed to be better. Okay, cool. But
sure.
it'd be kind of fun to sit down with somebody like that that researches stuff.
Yeah, I would think when you're on the road, that's a pretty tough way of living, especially if you're a plant-based diet, right? I'm gonna assume that's not necessarily easy to stick to that. So,
No, it's not. But
yeah.
when I decided that that's what was gonna need to happen,
Mhm.
um, I made it. I made it happen. So that's a lot of conversations with a lot of people to make sure that I have all the things that I need, that I provide. I just need places to put it. I'm not gonna. You have to make sure that
Yeah,
Um, yeah, but I feel
that's
way better.
impressive.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
if
No,
anybody
you're
wants to
doing
talk
great.
about that junk offline, it's fine. But I usually don't try to be that dude that's what they're talking about all the time.
No, it's all good. It's impressive though. You're doing great, man. Lastly then, I mean, you're someone who has traveled the world. You've seen a lot of things. Is there still some place you'd like to get to? I'm assuming is even though it's your career, you're traveling, all over the place. Is there somewhere you specifically, not work related, would still like to get to?
Dude, I have never made it to Japan
That
ever.
shocks me. I'm shocked.
Yeah, maybe that should have been the
Wow.
thing nobody knows about.
Yeah,
I've
that
never been to
actually shocks me
Japan.
big time. Yeah.
And man, anytime somebody's posting something about some place they went or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, I can't
Yeah.
believe you haven't been to Japan," I'm like, I
You were
know.
so close too. Yeah, so close.
And you know
Yeah.
what? When we were there, we went everywhere else.
Yeah.
Um, like we were all over the place because that's part of why dad wanted to make sure we did that.
Yeah.
Uh, moving over there and then touring wise, I mean, everywhere else. I've been everywhere else. Middle East, Africa. Uh, I was in North Korea.
That's crazy. Yeah, I saw that on your resume. That's crazy, man.
In North
I meant to
Korea.
ask you about that. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know how much I'm supposed to say about that, but anyway.
Yeah.
um,
We'll leave it there. We'll leave it there. Yeah.
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 So yeah, Japan. I would
Wow.
Japan and Russia. I haven't been either one of them, and
Yeah.
Russia at least was supposed to be pretty cool
Yeah.
to tour back in the day. So might be fun to do.
Well, hopefully this COVID thing will be behind us soon and you'll get to do that. But I can't thank you enough for doing this. Time flies, man. It's been a quick hour. I could talk to you forever. You're someone that I haven't seen you or talked to you in years, but we picked up. Here we go again. Picked up right where we left off. So,
Yeah.
glad you're doing well. Thank you so much for doing this, man. Is there, definitely say hi to your sister and your parents when you talk to them, because I definitely remember them and think fondly of them. But look, keep in touch, all right? And I appreciate you doing this.
I
Those
appreciate
of
you
you,
doing this, man.
go ahead, man.
This is such a cool thing that you're doing.
Thank you.
And it, it got me back on Facebook. So just so that I can jump in and
Yeah.
see some that my buddies from high school have been
Yeah.
on here, and then some of the people I don't know. Like, it's cool. Just
Yeah.
like I said, it's hard to talk to somebody about living overseas because they
Sure.
don't get it, and so just to hear somebody else talk about it every once in a while, it's kind of like, oh yeah, okay, I'm not the only one still. It's neat.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I've said it. I tend to say it every episode, but it's almost been therapeutic for me. This started off as just something fun to get me through COVID, right? And it's taken off. And people like us, we can blend in anywhere, and yet we're from nowhere, right? So it's just kind of one of those wild, crazy things. But yeah, you don't have to ask the questions. You don't have to feel guilty presenting yourself to people like you and I. We all have been there. We all know what it's like. We all have been through it. And then this second season, I'm definitely going to have more people from the TAS days and my Hong Kong days, but I'm also going to have, add in just regular old, people who have stories to tell. And that's kind of what this is all about. But yeah, specifically for people like us, yeah, it's important that our stories get told. And it's important that we don't feel like we're ostracized or just, because it's still, not everyone is going to understand. And it's just, I feel it's important to get our story out. And someone like you, someone like me, it's easy. We can pick up right where we left off, and I get it without even having to try. I get what you're saying. I get your backgrounds, and likewise. So it's a good thing. It's been fun. So we'll keep doing it. So
Awesome.
yeah. Well, look, say hi to your family for me, man. Okay.
You too, buddy.
I will. And those of you that are watching, thanks for watching. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you, I think I said this when we started, Carter, that this is now on a whole bunch of podcast platforms. So if you have Spotify, if you've got Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and a whole bunch of others, make sure you tap into that and subscribe on those as well. So, but this has been episode 2 of season 2 of BenThere. Thank you, Carter. Take care of yourself, brother. It's good to see you.
You too, buddy.
We'll talk to you soon. Stick around. I'm gonna end the broadcast now, but I want to chat with you once we get off air here.
Cool.
Until next time, everybody. Be good.